my pleasure to introduce the governor of the great state of Texas, Governor Rick Perry.
Brandon, thank you very much. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your initiative to introduce a piece of legislation that I believe is going to be a wake-up call, not just for Texas, but for this entire nation. Here in Texas, here in this capital, we typically spend a lot of time talking about the Texas Constitution. But it's definitely time for us to talk about the United States Constitution. I'm here today to offer my unwavering support to this young man, to all of these members of the legislature who are standing behind me, and more importantly, millions of Texans just like yourself that are tired of Washington, D.C. trying to come down here and tell us how to run Texas. I happen to think this is a pretty bold step. HCR is, as introduced by Representative Creighton, co-authored by Representative Guillen, is a bipartisan piece of legislation. It concerns all Texans. It concerns all Americans. The 10th Amendment was enacted by folks who remembered what it was like to have a very oppressive government, to be under the thumb of tyrants and an all-powerful government. Unfortunately, the protections it guarantees have melted away over the course of the years. You're probably familiar with that old adage about how to boil a frog. You know, you just get him to sit there in that pot and you turn up the heat a little bit by a little bit, and before you know it, the frog doesn't realize it, but he's done. And since the United States Constitution was ratified, the federal government's been slowly kind of turning up the heat on the states, if you will, and they've eroded the notion of states' rights. The Founding Fathers understood that a one-size approach doesn't work with the states when it comes to governing, especially a country the size of the United States. And I'll promise you it doesn't work for Texas. Our economic strength compared to the federal budget mess and other problems that they've got up there is a great example that Texans know best how to govern Texas. We're proof that good things happen when government lowers taxes, it lowers regulations, it reduces spending, it encourages private sector growth. You know, when Washington interferes with our proven approach, experience tells us what the outcome's going to be, and it's not going to be pretty. Like the Constitution and the other 26 amendments, the 10th Amendment has been the subject of extended debate. Been a lot of people, Robert, even smarter than you, legal scholars and experts who have discussed this, but when it comes down on the side that favors states' rights over unrestrained federal power, that's the message. That's the right place to be. I happen to believe that the Constitution does not empower the federal government to overrule state laws without restraint. I agree with Texas' 7th governor, and I happen to think its greatest governor, Sam Houston, who once said, "Texas has yet to learn submission to any oppression, come from what source it may." We didn't like oppression then. We don't like oppression now. I believe the federal government has become oppressive. I believe it's become oppressive in its size, its intrusion in the lives of its citizens, and its interference with the affairs of our state. Texans need to ask themselves a question. Do they side with those in Washington who are pursuing this unprecedented expansion of power? Or do they believe in individual rights and responsibilities laid down in our foundational documents? Where are you going to stand? With an ever-growing Washington bureaucracy? Or are you going to stand with the people of this state who understand the importance of states' rights? Texans need to stand up. They need to be heard, because the state affairs that we find ourselves in cannot continue indefinitely. Returning to the letter and the spirit of the U.S. Constitution and its essential 10th Amendment will free our state and ultimately strengthen our union. Regardless of your party affiliation, that is a goal that we all can embrace, and I want to ask all of you over the course of the next week, as you go to tea parties, to stand tall for Texas. Thank you all for being out and coming and showing your support for the 10th Amendment. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions at this point in time.
Does that mean you're going to refuse the stimulus program and package money that the federal government is offering the state of Texas?
There will be some of the dollars that the federal government is trying to force upon the state of Texas that we will say thanks but no thanks to. Unemployment insurance is one of those. Strings attached to those dollars, which I might add were our dollars to begin with, to make Texas change the way that it does its business. I will refuse those. Dollars that flow back to this state, dollars that we had sent there to begin with, that come back without strings attached, dollars that we could use to grow our infrastructure, to create jobs, we will take and we will show the rest of the country how to do it right.
Governor, has Senator Hutchinson been an active participant in the expansion of federal powers?
I would suggest that there are a number of folks in Washington, D.C. that have seen the federal powers be expanded, she being one of them.
In what ways? What things has she supported?
I'll get you the long and distinguished list of those shortly. The Texas National Guard is a bifurcated group, if you will. We have a national oversight, and we also have a state oversight. It has historically worked rather well in the state of Texas. For instance, when we have a national, or I should say a natural disaster, the governor of the state of Texas has the ability to call the Guard on duty to send them to troubled places along, whether it's our coastal region or whether it's our border, which we have done. By and large, we think it's time to draw the line in the sand and tell Washington that no longer are we going to accept their oppressive hand in the state of Texas. That's what this press conference, that's what these Texans are standing up for. Is there is a point in time where you stand up and say enough is enough, and I think Americans and Texans especially have reached that point. Any other questions?
Yeah, Governor, so what are your concerns about the local office transportation bill that passed this week yesterday, and do you intend to veto it?
Well, I think the question of, let me answer the second part of that. Do I intend to veto a bill that hadn't even made its way to the House of Representatives yet is a way premature question. I don't make judgments on bills until they are on their way to my desk and can't be changed anymore. So the idea that I've made up my mind about a piece of legislation, be that one or any other, is way premature. I do have a pretty a track record that's consistent when it comes to taxes. I'm not a big fan of taxes. I think it's philosophically a difficult discussion to have with most Texans, that while you have a depressed economy, is the time to go put a greater burden on the men and women of this state with a new tax. So philosophically, I've got some concerns about any piece of legislation that's creating new and expanded taxes, greater burden, if you will, on the citizens of the state, particularly the job creators of the state. So I would say that you can read between the lines pretty good on that. You know, got some concerns about it, but we're going to continue to work with the House members as it goes to the House and try to massage it and get it into a form that is either palatable or acceptable to the people of the state of Texas. Thank you all for coming out and being with us today. God bless you.